Hello, for this example, I'm going to help you answer a question very similar to the one that you have for homework yourself. I have here that a student's t-shirt business determines its profit in dollars from selling X t-shirts using the following function. So P represents the profit and X represents the number of t-shirts. That's again very important to interpret when doing these real world scenarios. Understand what the variables represent. So X is the number of t-shirts and P or P of X, however you want to think about it, is going to be your profit. So for the first part, how many shirts should the student sell in order to maximize the profit? So we're asking for the number of shirts. So what is X going to equal to in order to maximize this? Well, since we have a quadratic equation, we know that the shape of this quadratic equation, because of this value being a negative number, is going to create a parabola that is upside down, that opens downwards. So the maximum is occurring right here at the vertex. So the first part of this question is to identify the x value of that vertex, which is the same thing as asking where is the axis of symmetry. So to find that location, we're going to use the formula to find the axis of symmetry. Negative b divided by 2 times a. Now, since the values of a and b come from the equation, we're going to use those two numbers right there. So negative 0.5 is the value of a. Let me write this down. Let me label these things. So a is negative 0.5 and b is 30. So the x value of our maximum, or the location of our maximum, it will be negative b divided by 2 times a. And let's plug this into decimals and see what that equals. So negative of b divided by 2 times the value of a, and I forgot it, right? Negative 0.5. Let me put the negative sign up there because I don't want you to get freaked out because it's in the middle, right? Notice that regardless whether I put it up there or it was right there in the middle, it still gives me the same value. But let's put it up there so it doesn't look different than the way we wrote it on our notes. So we get a total of positive 30. So the maximum value is going to occur at that value of 30. Okay, so now that we know that the maximum is occurring again at 30, we can identify what the maximum value actual profit is, the maximum profit, by identifying the y value of that vertex. And to do that, we're going to plug this 30 into the equation for p. So p of x, which is the same thing as y, equals 0.5x squared plus 30x minus 10. We're going to get negative 0.5x. Again, is going to be replaced with 30. So again, we're using this answer that we got from this part to figure out the actual highest y value. So let's continue. So plus 30 times 30 minus 10. And let's do this calculation again just by plugging into decimals. Oh, this should be a square. Cannot forget that. So it was negative, I'll refer to the equation, negative 0.5, here we go, okay. 30 to the second power plus 30 times 30. And now, yeah, the last number was minus 10. Minus 10. is 440. So there's the answer to that part and the answer to this part. For this, you don't have to write x equals, you just need the numbers again for each value. So I'm just looking again for the numbers there. So you end up again with 30 and 440. Now, you could have done this and relied straight onto the graph. So if you were going to just use decimals and jump straight into this and write the function, instead of p of x, you could have used y equals. So y equals, or maybe even f of x. Y equals, again, to our negative 0.5 x squared plus 30x minus 10, and zoomed out, okay, zoomed out vertically, all right, you could have found the vertex again, which is what we're looking for. We're just simply looking for the vertex. But like I mentioned again in class, and like I mentioned in other examples, don't rely just straight on decimals to find that value. Because again, had these numbers been decimal values, then it would probably been in your best benefit again to know how to get those decimal values by hand and not rely just on the decimals calculator. Because some of the decimal values again are repeating values. So the answer is not going to be accepted again in the homework. You have to give me the exact answer, the exact value to this location, which in some decimal values, again, are going to be fractions like 1 over 9, 1 over 7, 2 over 7, okay? Where the decimal, as a decimal, there's a repeating pattern of decimals. Then if you don't recognize that, then you'll end up with the wrong, again, fraction notation for your answer. So again, know how to do this by hand and know how to, again, match these numbers. But in this situation, because you ended up with 30 and 440, there was no harm in using the point that you got from the equation by itself. So if you always want to do that first, graph it, see if you get lucky enough that you end up with whole numbers. You identify again the location, 30, and the value of the maximum for 40 automatically from there. Well, I appreciate you watching, and I do hope that this video was helpful.